Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And today we are going to do a follow up to our last discussion titled Sumerians, Thickness and the Inability to Read the Room. This is in response to Kamjiverse, who made a video, which we showed the last time and gave an adequate response. But what I want to do is to, in this video, add further context to the conversation and to further demonstrate how we go about to demonstrate relationship, beyond the shadow of a doubt. So all that and more when we return in just a moment. Want to welcome each and every one of you for joining this conversation today. And I do believe it is an honor for you to uh, give up a little of your time to engage in these conversations. So you can further support this channel by simply That's right. Make sure that you hit the like button. And if you are new to the channel, I would appreciate it greatly if you would subscribe so we can reach our 10,000 subscriber, benchmark, which we are less than 1,000, close to that mark. So thank each and every one of you who have already. And if you know some people that would benefit from this channel, make sure that you share the video as well as thumbs up the video. Again, we are talking about the last conversation, Sumerian thickness and the inability to read the room. We're responding to Kamjiverse, who made a video recently attacking a Facebook post that I made over a year ago before my account got banned, and which was meant to be a joke. So, of course, people who subscribe to my Facebook page or whatnot know that I joke all the time. And it was in the context of conversations regarding us being Native Americans, us being, the Sumerians, et cetera, et cetera. So, but everyone who knows my writings know my position because I put my positions in writing. So, but because this individual is unaware of how I run my channel and how I do scholarship, instead of getting clarity, he decides to make a video, and so we responded to that. And so I want to add. Let me do this real quick. Not. There we go. So this is going to be part 2 of our conversation. And so some people had some questions, and I can't type too much. I'd rather just, have the conversation about it. So, um, again, the issue of were the Sumerians black, that seems to be a controversial topic, and it is one that I really don't engage in at all. I don't have a real position on whether they were black or not. My care and concern is with the language and the relatedness of the language. So there's no correlation between language and phenotype. So these are two separate conversations because a lot can happen. So it's just like, for example, as an African man, I am speaking an Indo European language. That was the result of some circumstances that has happened within the last 400 to 500 years. And so, if we were to do a DNA test, or we was to do some limb proportions, or to analyze the physical type, there would be no correlation between the language for which I speak and the ancestry for which I belong. And so, it could very well be that uh, the Sumerians were some other phenotypical type people than some Africans, but adopted an African language, right? So that takes a little bit more research and rigor, and that's just not my focus at the moment. There are others who are handling that, and so we were supposed to, in March of last year, in 2024, to have a discussion, is Sumerian a Bantu language? And was supposed to have the conversation with a Gabrielle Bada. But like 1 hour before he was to engage in the conversation, he backed out of the conversation. And this is common when people disagree with my conclusions, and they go through all of this rah rah to uh, try to falsify my claims. But when it's time to have the live conversation, somehow they always find a reason to back out, right? And this goes for those who oppose certain arguments that I made regarding Egyptology, um, and other things, African spirituality, or even the relationship between Sumerian and other African languages. But this is the trend, and we can go down the list for anybody who doesn't believe me. And so it's Kamjiverse is another one of those people. He's one who is uh, one to throw a rock and then hide his hand, right? And he wants to make claims and arguments, but he doesn't want to engage in the conversation. And so it is with that I'm going to start off the video, making a request, and I'll make a separate video just focused on this, and we'll see what becomes of it. But the idea is that I'm tired of dealing with all of you internet folks who talk all this noise but then run when it's time to have the conversation. So, what I'm requesting of anyone, and you don't even have to be in opposition to me, if you have contacts, right, with a Sumerologist who is also a linguist, and you you are one of those individuals who uh, don't believe that you know my argument is sound in regards to the relationship between Sumerian and other African languages. If you believe that my methods are pseudo, regarding Sumerian and like, I am inviting you to find a Sumeriologist who also, again, has a background in historical comparative linguistics to ask them to have a public conversation with me regarding the issues, right? Because at this point, all of this going back and forth and making videos but don't want to engage, it's childish. And there's just a certain way that you do things when you're doing scholarship, right? Um, and so there's a demonstration process that has to be had. So and what they're all say is that you need to um, you know have these conversations with these individuals, and I can very well uh, find certain individuals to have the conversation with that will have the conversation. The problem is that when you pick somebody, just like when you pick a resource, as we'll have the conversation in just a little bit, what people will do is say, oh, well, that's not so and so, and I don't approve of him. They'll move the goalpost when you choose. So you have the opportunity. This is your opportunity, you know, uh, to find them, and we'll have the conversation on my channel. And if the person who finds them has a channel themselves, we can do a simulcast. So the viewership goes to your channel as well. But if at this point, you're going to need a sumerologist, and not one where you have the conversation and I'm not invited to the table, whatnot. So this is going to be a dialogue between the scholars and not you all. So just putting that out there first, and we'll get more on that in a later time. So I want to go back to the original post. So I'm not going to play the video. The video was played in the last video of Kamjiverse. It's about 2 minutes and some seconds long, right? And so again, he is addressing this post here. So let me go full screen, at least like that. Uh, from my post from, what was this, February the 19th, 2024. So just in case you can't read the small print on the left-hand side, I have retyped it and made it bigger. So what I said in the original post was, how do I know that the ancient Sumerians were Black and from the South? Because of their vocabulary. And then I say, I'm just going to leave this right here. You can take it how you want. So it was not meant to be a serious conversation, because I didn't make a claim per se, you know. So I took this opportunity to uh, point to a term in one of the dictionaries, cool, meaning heavy, thick, and sexually mature. And so I equate this with chiluba kole, uh, or kola, meaning adult, mature, from kola, meaning to grow, uh, or kukola, or kukole, meaning to grow, to expand. And from that same semantic field in the Yoruba language, bon, meaning ripe, and nikbon, meaning thick. And I don't know why that's not showing up uh, on this page right now. And on this slide, I mean, but the word is nikpon, which means thick, right? So I showed these two ladies here as representations of thickness, but I made no claim that these are representatives of the ancient Sumerians, right? So this is just a fuller picture of our good sisters. So peace and blessings to them. And so what I'm going to do is go through some of the major claims from Kamjiverse. So he claims that I, asarimhotep, said. So you're looking at. Let's go back. This is the post. This is exactly what I said. So you can keep this in mind of what exactly I said, and let's argue what he claims that I said or or was trying to say. I said, according to Kamjiverse, based on the curves and thickness of American black women, they descend from ancient Sumerians. Where in that statement did I say that black women descend from ancient Sumerians? And so because of their thickness. Like, how slow do you have to be to read exactly what I said here and then come and then make this up? This is just a pure lie, because there's no indication that this was even on my mind when I posted what I posted. And this is why I keep saying that I need to only deal with the Sumerologists, because I keep every single time these guys make videos and things, they just make up arguments that I never make, right? And you can only have so many conversations with people who have comprehension issues, and Kamjiverse is one of those individuals that have strong comprehension issues. And again, these are his exact words, not mine, right? So, um, so this is claim 2 in that video. So he, and notice I put here at the top, he meaning asarimhotep. So this is him talking in the video. So he claimed, meaning asarimhotep claimed, cool meant heavy, thick, sexual, mature. He said this is false and misleading. And then he, just shortly after that, he goes on to mention some homonyms in the language. In other words, there's some other words that are pronounced cool in Sumerian, and he brings up those, um, but but doesn't inform the listener about homonyms and homographs, right, and dialect variations or anything, or so I don't have to list the homonyms because they're not related to the word in which we're talking about now. But then he goes on to say later on in the video, let me get myself out of there. He said that he, meaning Asarimhotep, fabricated heavy, thick, and sexually mature from thick. They're all false cognates. So what he's trying to argue here is that I made the term up, right? In terms of relationship of heavy, thick, sexually mature. So instead of saying that, there's a source out there for which it is wrong, he just assumed that I made the term up. And so much of his video is based upon this false notion that I made the term up, right? And so that's in the last video I had to show that where I got that particular variation of the definition for cool from was from the Sumerian Lexicon version 3 by John A. Halloran. Now, he is an individual, he did not go to school for Sumerology, but he was an understudy of one or two Sumerologists uh, at UC Berkeley in California, right? And so, he's from the early days because they didn't have any accessible dictionaries. Went through all the source material and made an accessible dictionary, and he was building on it for years, making different versions. So this is version 3, right? And so this is the entry in the text, in the physical text form. It says adjective, heavy, thick, sexually mature. And again, I equate this with chiluba and other various African words, dialect forms of this word here, which would be equivalent to kole. in Chiluba, right? So the term has a source, right? And so under the last video that we posted here, another one of those individuals who constantly has something to say but never wants to engage in the conversation live, right? Um, is Chuck Morgan. So he posts this long, lengthy post under here, and for some reason he's going around saying that I deleted it. And this is what I mean by comprehension, and we got to deal with folks. It's the post is still there. All you have to do is click new or all comments, and your comment will show up. Because you posted so much information, YouTube is considering it quasi spam, which is why it doesn't show up immediately. So I don't delete, unless it's something like very racist or something. It has to be something extreme. Just because your post is stupid, I don't delete it, or you say something to offend me, right? I don't delete it. I have thick skin, right? So part of what he said in the his post is that it's all false. Your only source, John A. Halloran, who I have consulted over the years on general topics, Halloran's work is not a peer-reviewed academic dictionary and is not cited by professional Sumerologists. He says serious academic work relies instead on resources like the Pennsylvania Sumerian Dictionary, the Assyrian Dictionary, the Oriental Institute, Chicago, Miguel Civil Sign List, etc., etc., etc. So, like your source is bogus. But I'll deal more with this misinformation in a second. Halloran's glosses often conflate meanings from different contexts and periods without philological rigor, using his definitions to support methodologically flawed ideas like you do, Basar. And it's interesting because we're going to go to his next post. So this was another post under here, and you'll probably have to zoom in to see it. But the unless he deletes it, it's still up on the previous video that we did, right? So um, he says here that, whatever, dude, your words now are classic examples of plausible deniability. Uh, Whenever someone cites or promotes a theory, especially when done repeatedly, affirmatively, and without critique, it implies endorsement. You have consistently used these specific claims, cool equals sexually mature, etc., as a foundation for your broader argument that the Sumerians were black because of a couple of images of women with big asses. So again, he's old. He's an old man, but he has arrested development and comprehension issues as well. First and foremost, I don't use Halloran's dictionary in any of my analyses. I have in my possession several hundred dictionaries for languages around the world. And I don't know how many Sumerian grammars and dictionaries and word lists from various people. I only use a small few when I'm doing my actual comparisons, and I never use Halloran. You've never seen me use Halloran, only for a Facebook post. And it's because of how he worded it in there that I made the joke in the first place. But when I do my analyses, I don't use Halloran, and it is not for any conflated meanings or whatnot. That's a bunch of BS, right? Because all he's doing is citing other dictionaries, so and other grammar works and the like. So you would have to consult those texts and make those arguments against them. He's not making up the words, right? So the fact that he would he's just like Kamjiverse. He just throws information in there that is not real, that he made up in his head because he doesn't have an argument against my actual work. Again, you will not find in any of my work, in any other Facebook post, in any video that I did, where I include the word cool, sexually mature in any of my comparisons. And I dare you to find one other than the Facebook post that I made over a year ago in a joking manner. So this shows how much you follow or have even read the works in which I have done, because you in your feelings, and allegedly he's in his feelings because when he made a video attacking Hermel Hermstein's work on Black Sumer, he just makes up claims. He made up some claims against Hermel Hermstein's work. And I'm like, that's not what was done in this text. And it's clear that he never read Hermel Hermstein's text. And so I made a video correcting Chuck Morgan so that, his false claims and false arguments against Hermel Hermstein would not go without a response on the internet, because he just made up some stuff that just wasn't true. And it's not saying that I agree with everything that Hermel Hermstein said or anything, but as a scholar, you should always represent the arguments as they are presented by the scholar. You don't read into, you don't make up anything else. You present it as it is, right? And then the fact that Chuck Morgan doesn't have any background in historical comparative linguistics, he doesn't even understand the methodology that was used and how it is the standard methodology that Hermel Hermstein used, right? But unlike everyone who has a problem with me, anytime that I do a show and I'm going to be addressing you or something that you said, I always give invites. And I invited Chuck Morgan to the program so that when I'm making my responses to his slides, he is right there. And if I'm misrepresenting his argument, he can respond live there. But he for some reason refused to come on the show. So now he's in his feelings and thinking that I have something against him because of the video which he was invited to come on. And so, the way that he comes at here is shows the state of his character, and why I mean that he's an old man, but he has arrested development. He's in his feelings all the time. And because he's in his feelings, he can never process the information correctly, because he's taking it as a kind of a personal thing, right? So we're just going to move on. And so the third claim is that the Sumerian words, or his choice of Sumerian words, alleged as cognates with Chiluba won't work. None hold the claim definitions. And, what people don't realize is that I have been doing a comparative analysis between Sumerian, ancient Egyptian, various Bantu languages, Chiluba, Kikongo, isiZulu, um, Luganda, Kinyarwanda, the Yoruba language, Akan language, Wolof, right? Even Dravidian. I've been doing this. I have hundreds of thousands of comparisons, and most of it I have not shared at all with the public. So when if you see something in the form in which I just showed, it is an isolated incident. Uh, it is not isolated. It's always backed up by a full comparative analysis, right? So you know, I want to, for this part, discuss using multiple dictionaries as a research method. right? And so, in the last video, I stuck with isiZulu. So in this video, I'm going to stick with isiZulu now. So isiZulu is related to Chiluba. They have the same words, some words have slight different pronunciations, but they are the same, as with most Bantu languages, right? Or so-called Bantu languages. So we're going to deal with the isiZulu language. And so, for example, I'll use the isizulu.net dictionary. That's for my quick, uh, searches, because it's on the web. You can pull it up quick. I have physical dictionaries. I have dictionaries that are in PDF that go back to the 1700s, 1800s. More recent ones like the one by the Zulu English Dictionary by C.M. Doke, right? And it's because when I use these multiple dictionaries, the reason why we always encourage, especially when we're doing ancient Egyptian work, is that you always want to have as many dictionaries as possible, because there's only so much space that any lexicographer has for their dictionary entries. So with each new dictionary, they may be referencing a major dialect or a minor dialect, and they may have rare forms of words, and some dictionaries may include some words that other dictionaries don't because of space, right? And so this is why you consult multiple dictionaries, and then you consult when you pick terms out. You look at the various dictionary entries, and you see the range of the semantic field for which the the range of the semantic field for each firm. So now when you're looking at them all at once, you get a better sense of the overall feel, of the word and its meanings, because everybody doesn't use the exact same wording when they put their entries in, right? So for example, um, like this is from CM Doke's Zulu dictionary entry. He has the kula, in the various different forms, given the prefixes and suffixes, to grow in size, to increase, enlarge, become mature, to reach puberty, right? This is the same cool that you find in the dictionary in the Morrison's, excuse me, in Halloran's uh, dictionary that has the exact um, meaning. He just uses the word sexually mature. Sexually mature is the same thing as reaching puberty. So when Kamjiverse says his choice of Sumerian words alleges cognates with Chiluba won't work, none hold the claimed definitions. He doesn't know the extent of my analysis and why I'm able to make these arguments the way that I do, right? And so there was another, like when you go to the electronic Pennsylvania Sumerian dictionary, they have under cool, besides the word heavy, they have also to give honor to a person, right? And so you find this form in CM Doke's dictionary that is not in the online dictionary. They have some other related terms to this, but they don't have this exact wording, which is why it's important for you to use multiple dictionaries. So they have kuleka with the ka suffix attached to the form, meaning to salute a superior, to give a greeting of respect, to adore and to revere, right? That is semantically equivalent to give honor to a person. The entry that is given by the electronic Pennsylvania Sumerian dictionary, right? So when I do my comparisons, I have a strict semantic requirement, right? So there's no argument against the forms and the meanings that I make. So here's another variation to tie up as a goat. And so this is the power of the comparative method, as we can see right here, right? So we have kol, to be heavy, to honor a person. Isizulu, grow, increase, develop, mature, grow up. And so these entries here are strictly from the isizulu.net website. But as you can see, I can add these entries as well from the Siendoke, who's a major linguist of Bantu languages. And so that text is fairly recent. So this is from published in 1972, a few years before I was born, right? So when we have cool here, and these are all, and I don't know why I still have Chicam on here. That should be Sumerian. Um, the word for a plant, weed, ukula, weed, just like in what's the name's dictionary. Um, kula, ulukula, izzy and kula, weed, weeds, right? And it says in the plural is used for different varieties of weeds and plants, right? And so it's the same meaning, but what's more important besides the meanings, the same meanings like kun, ladder, stairs, unquelo, iminquelo, ladder, right? And so you should know that there's various different sound interchanges in the Sumerian language. So there's K and G, and there's L and R, and LR and N, as well as N and sh. And we'll get more into that later. But this is from the first video, and you can go back and confirm these sound correspondences here. And so, just as I mentioned earlier, I don't only use the University of Pennsylvania online dictionary, online Sumerian dictionary, right? I also use, for example, an annotated Sumerian dictionary, Mark E. Cohen. And this is important because this is an example here of me. This is what I do on a regular when it comes to using various dictionaries, because I always want to make sure that the the words that I'm using from the different sources, uh, even if they don't use the exact same wording, they're still using wording that is within the same semantic field, right? So when I use them in my analyses, everything is right and exact. So on this slide here, we see the entries from John A. Halloran's dictionary, Mark E. Cohen's dictionary, and the Electronic Pennsylvania Sumerian Dictionary side by side. And you can see here that even if I was not to use the John A. Halloran dictionary and just only use Mark E. Cohen and the EPSD dictionary, that I would still get the same exact results, right? So you can see John A. Halloran, heavy, thick, sexually mature. In the Cohen dictionary, he only has the variant strength. And so when you see entries for heavy and thick, you always see variations of strength, hard, strong, right? So when you go to the EPSD, you have cool, to be heavy, to honor a person. Now they'll be like, well, this entry is not, they don't have a source for this entry. That does not mean that this entry is a ghost word. It just means that for the University of Pennsylvania, they don't have the source. but they have another variation of the word that has these meanings. So you have cool, to be big, great, to be senior, to be retired, former, to be mature of male animals, older, goblet, etc. This is all within the same semantic field of what you find in Mark E. Cohen's dictionary as well as John A. Halloran's dictionary. So these are the KL consonant sequences. Then in the next row, we have the KR consonant sequences because there's just with the slight variation in the consonant mutation, you you sometimes get variations in slight changes in meaning, which is a very clear indicator for those of you who have a historical comparative linguistic background that Sumerian lost certain prefixes and suffixes that created the environment for the consonant mutation change. But since they lost those morphemes, those grammatical morphemes, you're just now stuck with the variations of these words now as separate entries in the lexicon, right? These are all the same word. So whether you say kul or kur in Halaran, you have to be or feel big, to be endowed with, and this gives you um, the semantics behind the word from mountain and highland, because mountain comes for words from meaning big, large, heavy, right? Then you have cur, to be thick, to be massive. Then you have in Cohen's dictionary, then in the EPSD, you have cur, to be thick, to be big, to feel big, to be arrogant, to thicken, and unit of capacity, cur, mountain. So you see how these different dictionaries, some will have some of the exact same wording, some will have more meaning, some will have less, right? So go down here to the GR consonant sequence. And this gur here, I have id, that means the same, it's in the same entry in Halloran's dictionary for cur, right? So gur meaning to be or feel big, to be endowed with, right? And then gur, thick, coarse, fattened, plump, bright, preeminent, very strong, great, right? Within Cohen's dictionary, you have gur, to be massive, fat, to be full to capacity, to be important, to be sturdy, a measure. And so this measure, back in the day, uh, you know, value was determined by weight. So in terms of weight in gold, weight in precious metals, weight in grain, right? So this is what this is referring to. And so if you go to the EPSD dictionary, you have to be thick, to be big, to feel big, to be arrogant, to thicken, right? And then you have a unit capacity. So it has the same meanings as what we have in Kohan. It doesn't. It's not fully played out like it is here in Cohen's Cohen's entries, but none of these contradict what's going on in Halloran's dictionary. So this is how you check the meanings. Is there consistency in the forms? So now we have the GL or NL consonant sequence. A large cut, chief, eldest son, big, large, mighty, great. In Cohen's dictionary, gal, to make great, gal, great, large, gul, gula, to make greater, to increase, gal, chief. Oop, let me go back, sorry. Um, Gula, greater, greatest, huge, gal, D, a D suffix, supreme. And then you have in the EPSD, gal, gul, or gula, I should say, to be big, to be senior, to be retired, former, to be mature of male animals, older, goblet. These are all variations from the same proto form, right? The evolution in terms of sound change, because in later times they may pronounce a G a K, or consonant mutation, which is common like in Sierra, Wolof, and Fulani in terms of initial consonant mutation, right? This is it. So you could not try to dismiss the Holoron dictionary when he has the exact same forms and meanings as what you have in the Cohen dictionary and the EPSD. So with that, it is where the comparative work is. And these, I've created a table with three main columns in the sound correspondences. I have split them up into some what I call just arbitrarily Sumerian A and Sumerian B, where um, you have the entries from either Cohen or the EPSD, right? So that's what you have in Sumerian A in terms of the KL, KD, KR forms, right? And then the voice velar uh, consonant in the first position with the followed by the liquid consonant is in Sumerian B column, right? So these are different variations of the same word, but you see they all correspond to isiZulu, the aspirated K, the voiceless velar, and then followed by the liquid L. So we have Kulu, strong, heavy, intense, right? And that would correspond to Cohen's entry of cool, meaning strength, and Sumerian, excuse me, and EPSD's entry, meaning to be heavy. Both entries are found in isiZulu. And then we have Kali, so you can see the vowel changes are consistent, and we have the same vowels in that. So here's strength, effective power, right? And then, slight semantic variation in the word gur. In order to be thick, to feel big, to be arrogant, to thicken, right? And so we have cool, to be heavy, to honor a person. And then we have a consonant mutation to the sh and z, meaning a noble. And so you have gur, to be important, gal, to make great, a chief. And then we have kuleka, salute, to a superior, give greeting of respect, adore, revere. Kulu, person of rank, nobleman, peer, member of the royal house, person of high standing at the Zulu court, right? We have the cad, gar, kara variant, to tie, to gather, to scratch, to weave a mat. The voice velar gur variant, to gather, to collect, corresponds to kuleka, tie up as a goat, secure by the leg, bind, right? Then we have cool, to run. Then we have gur, runner. And then we have this form here, uh, kinka, uh, meaning run, trot, pace along. Again, all these three entries have this ka suffix that is not present in Sumerian, but that would probably explain why the final consonants are changing between L and R. So remember, what is maintained in Bantu has been lost in Sumerian. So we have all these different variations, whereas isiZulu has been able to keep its main structure because it maintains all the prefixes and suffixes to the root, right? So I've added another row here. So we have Sumerian A, we have Sumerian B, and then we have isiZulu, and then we have ancient Egyptian, which we call Chikam. So notice the different forms. So we have different forms here: Kul, Gur, Kulu, Kali, etc. And then which corresponds to ancient Egyptian were, to be great, to be large, too much, too great, right? To be heavy, to honor a person, a noble, great, much, many, eldest, important, chief, prince, elder, magnet, whatever, great one. Ka, to tie up, which would correspond to Egyptian mer, meaning bind together, to tie up, to fasten, to choke. And as I've shown in other spaces, um, and I don't know why my my fonts aren't showing up on this on this slide anyway. But the W and M sound interchanges in ancient Egyptian. So if you find a form with just the M um, or the W, they interchange. So when we say mer, this is the previous form before the mutation to were, right? And then we have where yet is a chariot in terms of being cognate with these forms because there's a variant meaning to go, to travel. And then when it's nominalized with the T suffix, it becomes a word for chariot, as we can see in the various. So, like with this word meaning sacred bark, out on a journey, or this, the variant is ma, steer, extend, paddle, set on a journey, and then mat, bark for the sun, etc. The fundamental, the underlying theme means to move, to go, and that's what we see here. But we can do this all day. So there's no way if these were an accident, there will be no way that we would find these consistent sound meaning correspondences between Sumerian in both dialect forms, Isizulu, and in ancient Egyptian. It would be impossible since these allegedly ones are supposed isolate, and then these allegedly belong to two different language families that are not supposed to be related. But this is what we uncover when we actually do the work. And so we can do the same forms when it comes to the Yoruba. So remember in my initial post, I included the Yoruba word pon, meaning ripe, and then nikpon, meaning thick. That corresponds to these forms that you see over here in Sumerian and Isizulu, right? So we have pon, meaning be abundant, be many, and what the Sumerians did is that and the Isizulu did is they reduplicated simply the word for abundant and great, and it becomes the word for flood, right? And then we have in Isizulu Kali, the sharpness, keenness, sharp edge, and Yoruba Pon, sharpen. In Sumerian, there was a sound change from K to S, sharp and pointed. Um, but we know that there was a KL variant of it because it's fossilized in this form, kubal, meaning sharp end of a spindle, right? And so we have kid, gid, to pluck out, to drag, to tow, ka, to draw out water, to pluck off fruit, vegetables, to pull out, pon in Yoruba, draw water, to drill. It would be impossible if there was not a relationship between these languages for these basic meanings to be consistent phonetically with the first consonant and second consonant in these languages. And it would be even more impossible that we would get in ancient Egyptian again for these same words, right? Again, we was already introduced to were, great, mighty, chief, magnet, but were excess. How much? Much, greatness of size, sufficiency of food, and then where we at? Flood, just like what we see in the Zulu and Sumerian, right? They don't have a word meaning sharp, at least in my quick perusal. I can expand my analysis into some other dictionaries just to find out. But just like what in for the fourth row at the bottom, we have word, pull, drag on the bird net. Draw water, drill, draw, pluck off, pull out flowers in this Zulu, kid to pluck out, remove, to drag, tow, to tighten, to pull out, to haul, the earth, all within the same semantic range here. So, for a lot of folks, y'all may be listening to this and think this stuff is boring, but trust me when I tell you that this is the kind of stuff that gets people in their feelings. And notice when I make an argument, I demonstrate for you live and in person. It's right here in your front of your face, and everybody can evaluate. Everybody knows my sources because I tell you, right? And so, the reason why these forms all match is hypothesized for this is a when you start learning the Sumerian language at the university level, more than likely you're going to be introduced to this text, the Sumerian language, an introduction to its history and grammatical structure by Marie Louise Thompson, right, published in 1984. And on page 43, she's talking about the opposition voiced and voiceless. And what she means by that is, um, this notion like you see in this bottom left corner and this top left corner as well, where there's a kid, like this kid. This is the voiceless initial consonant, and then we have gid, the initial voiced consonant. We consistently see these variations in the Sumerian language. So, what could possibly be the reason for this initial consonant mutation, right? So, she informs us. Um, she says the conventional transliterations show a distinction between voice and voiceless stops in Sumerian, BDG, PTK. But in fact, it is disputed whether this distinction actually existed in Sumerian. First of all, the earliest Akkadian system of writing does not distinguish BDG and PTK, and it is most probable that the Akkadians borrowed this custom from the Sumerians. This means that Sumerian originally does not have the opposition voiced and voiceless. However, I don't know if this is Thomas Jacobson, 1957, page 92, note 1, thus suggested another opposition, rounded, therefore pronounced with a rounded lips, stops in sibilants. So BDG, Z, sh, and unrounded PTKS. So so instead of it being a voice versus an unvoiced opposition, it is a rounded versus unrounded opposition. And this would totally make sense for a number of reasons here, right? So, for example, we have this ger to yoke, harness, gil to harness, and then the initial consonant is lost and it becomes harness, yoked, team. This corresponds to ancient Egyptian mer, binding, fetter, to bind. So how does the G, the U, the and the im correspond in all of these different forms? Sang meaning tep, head, person. And so it's, indicating, is acting as a grammatical classifier, for a human activity or human occupation, right? So Sangber, a priest, Suber, slave servant, Ber Sang, it's just a reverse, a servant. So it becomes the Ber becomes servant. And it should be noted that G and B interchanges in Sumerian. So how does G and B interchange? And how does these both correspond to the same phoneme in Egyptian in terms of M, right? So we say gig to be sick. It also could be to hurt, to be distressing. That's what Cohen uses. Gar meaning a disease. And remember that G and B interchange. So we know the full form that was reduplicated as gig, partially reduplicated, is buru, as the Gar informs us here, a disease. So you have to be convulsed, and then uri, an illness of the joints, arthritis, and illness, right? Which corresponds to mer, to be ill, to suffer, a sick man, illness, pain, mirit, illness, evil, right? And then we have boo and woo, so the B and W's interchange, to flit, chase about. And then we have to roam about. And then we have mer, to run, aground, to strand. And then the marad, to set out on the journey that we saw earlier. And again, I don't know why my transliteration font is not showing up on this computer when it definitely has it. Operating on a different computer today. And so, partially this can be explained in terms of the realization of the phoneme, the protophoneme, in terms of the nasalized. This is a nasalized labial velar. Gua, gua. So that's what we mean by it being labialized. And so when followed by the closed mid-central vowel e, it can become m, or it can become ng, and ng can become g, and then g can become b, or it can be done as a result of. Well, before I go there, let me kind of just go ahead, just kind of see. So here's Sumerian to grow. Gu gid, to grow abundantly. Ga ga, gar, to grow. And then because ng corresponds with m, you have a ma and a mu variant, meaning to grow. Right? These are all the Sumerian forms. So you have to study the sound change in Sumerian. This is part of the internal reconstruction process, right? And even in G.J.K. Campbell Dunn's text on the Sumerian comparative grammar and comparative dictionary, where he's comparing Sumerian and Niger-Congo languages, he also suggests that the sound he regards as a probable value as possibly labialized velar nasal. So um, that's what this is, a labialized velar nasal. Ngwa, right? And so that's what gives us these particular forms, and then they can be devoiced into K, and some other things can go right. So this is how we get gal, for example, because remember what I said earlier, that there's a semantic change. So from this concept of meaning to grow, to get big, comes the words for great, massive, heavy, thick, fat, and from that a weight measure, and then this ultimately gives way to words for jewelry. And then later on in Neo-Assyrian, it becomes cool, 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 beautiful. That's where this word comes from. It's a derivative from the word for jewelry, right? And you have different variations: gigilum, right? Jewelry ornament, and you have gugu, because the second consonant has been dropped in the reduplication process, meaning jewelry. And then this cool, cool, cool um, becomes kal, kala, and then ka, because the second consonant has been dropped. And you get these secondary derivative meanings: to be rare, valuable, to be scarce, to be concerned with, to make precious, to patch a garment, to treat as valuable, respect, all within the same semantic field as the other forms that we saw earlier, right? Because when you're dealing with jewelry, you're dealing with something that is precious, rare, and valuable, right? And so this, of course, we can do our comparative analysis with isiZulu, and everything makes sense. So we have gal, meaning jewelry. This is a Cohen's dictionary, which would correspond to isiZulu kono, bracelet, wrist, ornament, right? But then, just like Sumerian, the second consonant has been dropped. There was a change in vowel, and they have gugu, jewelry, which is in isiZulu, igugu, jewel, valuable thing, and igugu can also mean valuable person. And from that same root, it's still, even though it didn't have the same sound change as what happened in Sumerian, when the sound change happened, kal, ka, to be rare, valuable, to be scarce, we see the same semantic evolution in isiZulu in terms of gugu or iligugu, amagugu, some valuable, prize, rare object, favorite person, someone dear, precious stone, a valuable object, etc. Because Remember that the concept of to grow, to become massive, to become heavy becomes the words for rocks and stones and precious stones. And from the concept of precious stones and certain rocks, do you get words for jewelry? Because that's what the jewelry was made out of. It was made out of certain precious mined stones, right? And then you get these other derivative forms. And so this is the power of the comparative method. You get to the core of things, and everything obeys the sound laws that we established earlier. Nothing is out of place. So anybody having any opposition to what I'm saying is going to have to do an analysis on this level, right? Here's some common sound changes. So you can have a voiceless velar, labialized velar, or labial velar, which is qua ba, and then qua ga, right? Or you have ngwa to WMN, or ngwa becomes ng and G, right? Some other sound changes I'll just leave here. You can come back and visit this later. I was going to explain something else, but I decided not to add it. And in that Marie Thompson's text, this is still the same text. You'll get to, if you start on page like 286 and go to page 287, you'll see many of the sound interchanges, dialect interchanges. So, like on this page, I don't know if you can really see it, but there's D and Z. So, the main dialect, Imigur, and then the other dialect, Imisal. So, where they have D, Imisal will have Z. Where Imigur will have G, Imisal will have B. Where Imigur has Ng, Imisal will have M. So that's why it is Dinger for God in, Imigur, but Dingmer in Imisal. And this is also where you get the word Sumerian. It's like that with the word Sumerian, right? And so where we get the word Sumerian ultimately comes from the Imisal dialect, not Imigur, right? So, um, H and G, N and N, M and N, M and G, right? There's a process behind this, and she gives examples with words that you can kind of follow along here. We won't have time to go through all of these, but and this is some of the sound changes that I showed y'all from the first video that is in the slide. So I won't go over these again, but these are very important to know. So again, I can abandon Holleron's dictionary and not use it at all, which I don't. I never do when I'm doing my serious comparisons. I just happen to, I even forgot I had that dictionary when I made that post. So when I was perusing through and seeing that entry, I decided to make a Facebook post. But I don't use Holleron for any of my um, comparisons. And again, you'll be hard pressed to find a video, an article with me using the term "cool," sexually mature in any of my comparisons. So this is another fabrication that Chuck Morgan made up. For what reason, I have no idea. But I won't get with the transitivity. So I'll just end on that note. And so I do appreciate each and every one of you for your time. Um, I am in the University of Pennsylvania. I'm in the Egyptology section also. I'm doing some other research for a book. But I was downstairs. That's where they got all the Assyrian and Sumerian linguistic texts and the like. So looking there. So I'm looking for some arguments that some other scholars have made in the text. So so we'll see how that turns out. But I do appreciate the time, and y'all continue to keep up the good fight. Make sure that you like and share. share the video. And until next time, Hotep.
Tokyo wanna dose that. What's up? Feeling like I dropped the draw for and caught Uno. Came to kick the door with the game man judo. Pin game low, that's why they give me kudos. Inspired by the 3-0. 595, check it for pack light. Hit the turnpike, slide to a baseline. Gotta sound like I just hit the 8-5. Oh, I'm so ready, by enemies necessary. We gon' be legendary, hold up. About to grow the payrolls. If you see the vision and you're with it, you should say so. Cause we about building, elevating the millions.
This program was created with the love and support of all our Patreon members and subscribers. If you are not a member yet and would like to see more content like this, consider becoming a member today. The link is in the description of this video. Your support is greatly appreciated.